We talked about unemployment, the housing crisis, the budget, how it's all tied together. And the president this time around said things are getting a little better, but there is room for improvement, especially when it comes to housing. And he offers some solutions today. You invited us here to talk about housing. Yeah. It is one of the biggest economic problems we have in the state of Florida. We have a housing market that's just tanked. Yeah. More than half of the people, or about 2 million folks, are underwater on their homes. They can't afford to stay in their homes. The homes aren't worth what they're paying for them. What's the solution? Well,
The government's not going to be able to solve this whole problem. We're talking about trillions of dollars worth of home values all across the country that have been affected by this terrible recession and the housing bubble bursting.
Now, again, as the president said, this has to get through Congress, this idea of refinancing for homeowners, and critics abound. I mean, there are those who say that this is risky business. Basically, you're offering low-interest loans to folks who are already in trouble, and they're saying that if it is FHA-backed, meaning it's 100% guaranteed, could we be pushing the risk from the banks onto the taxpayer? Could we be in for another bailout down the road if it all goes to pieces?
Keith, before you go, I understand the president took a shot at Governor Scott over high-speed rail during your talk as well.
Well, we talked about jobs and how it relates to housing, really, because, I mean, most people lose their homes because they've lost their jobs. You create jobs, you kind of solve the housing crisis. And the president went on to say, well, you know, I did my best to help the folks of Florida when I introduced and helped push this idea for high-speed rail between Tampa and Florida. And he said, you know, there's a report out now that says it could have made $30 to $40 million in profits. So maybe the next time an opportunity comes along, the good folks of Florida ought to push a little harder to make sure that happens. So I thought that was a little dig the president made at Governor Scott. And coming up tonight, I want to tease something. I'm going to play a little soundbite that I thought was very candid of the president, because when he was running the last time around, he talked about fundamental change. What does that mean? I pushed him and said, do you feel like you have fundamentally changed the way Washington works as you had hoped? More efficient, more creative, more transparent. You'll hear what he says about that coming up at 11.
All right, well, we'll look forward to that, Keith.
During the last campaign, you talked about fundamentally changing the way Washington does business. A more efficient, more transparent, more creative Washington. Have you succeeded in that goal? Are we fundamentally better off? Is Washington a better place? Is it working more efficiently?
You know, what I can say is that the federal government as a whole is working more efficiently.
Do you regret in any way referring to Mitt Romney as anti-immigrant?
I think we should probably have used the slightly more calibrated language.
You brought up the Space Coast a moment ago.
Yes.
Mitt Romney has been critical of not only you suggesting that we could colonize on the moon, but he also goes a step further and says you're pandering to states like Florida and these key battleground states. What do you say to that? Are you pandering?
Look, it's typical of the inaccurate campaign he's running.
There is a debate over income inequality. Do you believe you pay the fair share, or do you think, I know you're doing nothing illegal, but that perhaps you and wealthy like you should pay a little bit more?
Well, I can't imagine anyone saying they should pay more than what is required by the law.
Are you the most conservative Republican in this race?
You know, I'm conservative on the issues I think people care about most deeply.
On the subject of health care, a big concern for folks in Florida as well. If you should become the nominee, how do you sit beside President Obama or stand beside him and debate Obamacare when he looks straight at you and says, Obamacare? I kind of got the idea from Romney Care.
Well, actually, Obamacare is a 2,700-page monstrosity.
It's like, let the partisan bickering begin. I mean, you have the Republicans already saying that it's reckless. Democrats are saying it's fair. But it has been like 1,000 days, more than, since the Senate actually produced a budget. How long does the American public have to wait before Congress gets its act together and produces a budget that we can live with? Right. And it makes you wonder about the one you're proposing now. Does it even have a chance?
Well, look, I think it's no secret that Congress is very divided right now.
I'm Keith Cate reporting in Washington. Now back to you. Bill Nelson spoke with him earlier today, and I asked him about why he's not up there speaking. He says he didn't want to speak here. He's more interested in campaigning, but I find it rather odd considering this race in Florida for the U.S. Senate seat is so intense a battle going on right now with Connie Mack. Although he is not speaking, it's also interesting to note that a familiar name is speaking here. Former Republican Governor Charlie Crist. Charlie Crist, a man who was a Republican governor, ran for Senate as an independent, now backing President Barack Obama. Is this a man that you can look to and say, he thinks like I do?
Charlie told me that he has endorsed me, and I'm very grateful for that. Charlie, I understand, is going to speak here at this convention, and I wish Charlie the best. The fact is that he has the way that he runs, and I have the way that I run.
Do you see him entering the race as a gubernatorial candidate as a Democrat?
I don't know.
That seems to be the speculation everyone's tossing around.
I simply don't know.
You know Alex Sink, the former chief financial officer for the state of Florida, who may also be interested in running as a Democrat. Comes down to Alex Sink, Charlie Crist. Who do you support?
Well, let me cross that bridge when I get there, because there are a lot of others that have announced.
Keith, how are organizers dealing with this major change that they have to make in the scheduling?
Well, frankly, Gail, I think this change of venue idea was floated last night. We heard rumors of it, but as you point out, it wasn't confirmed until this morning, and that's when word really began to spread. I mean, you're talking about an acceptance speech that's going from the Bank of America Stadium, seating 60 to 70,000 people, to an arena that seats only about 20,000.
The driving force here was the safety and security of the attendees who were going to be there on Thursday night to hear the president speak. We wanted to make sure that we were making the right decision. We looked at a lot of forecasts and weather predictions, and we didn't want to put anyone in harm's way. Everyone's disappointed about this decision from the president on down, but we think it's the right thing to do because we think safety is the priority here.
But there was that memo that went out, rain or shine, it's going to happen unless it was severe weather, but still you feel rain is still too much.
Rain's one thing. Yeah, severe thunderstorms is another, and that was the driving factor in our decision.
And any claim that this was a decision to pull back because the president was not going to be able to fill the Bank of America Stadium?
Absolutely not. No stock in that claim. We had 19,000 people on a wait list to get in there.
Strangely enough, the weather improved today. Not many rain showers, but weather has been a concern, and disappointment is the word of the day. I spoke to several delegates down here earlier tonight in the arena. They said they're very disappointed for their fellow volunteers, the people who worked so hard to raise money for the president who won't be able to be there. Joining me now is our News Channel 8 political analyst, Dr. Susan McManus. And other news today, I woke up this morning, I saw a newspaper, and on the front page, a picture of Charlie Crist begins latest campaign. You were in the arena today when he showed up to do some practice on stage.
I was standing there, and all of a sudden, people started pointing, and they said, "Who is that?" And I turned up, and I said, "Oh, that's Governor Crist, former Governor Crist of Florida." And so there was a lot of excitement. Yes, I've heard of him, but there was a little bit of apprehension back in the morning breakfast because a number of Democrats there weren't quite so keen on talk that he might want to run for governor next time out as a Democrat.
Hi, Gail. Electricity in the air, and believe it or not, there's still a lot of work being done in the arena tonight. The delegates actually going through the roll call. Florida just finished up 300 delegates going for, of course, Barack Obama. Within the past hour, though, if you're watching, you saw Bill Clinton electrify the audience here, a ringing endorsement for Barack Obama, and he had a message for the party faithful: 4 more years. You can debate the details of the speech all you want, but no one gives a speech, Dr. Susan McManus, like Bill Clinton, at least in the political world today. Your reaction?
Absolutely true. He literally took every claim that the Republicans made last week against the Obama administration and dissected them one by one with humor, but with also some numbers that really raised these people to their feet.
Keith Cate joins us now live from Charlotte with the speaker. Has the convention buzzing. This is a name that's very familiar to all of us, Keith.
Oh, indeed it is, and frankly to the nation, based upon what's happened here. We're talking about the former Florida governor, the Republican governor, Charlie Crist. He's been making the rounds in Charlotte now for about 2 days, and he was on stage here practicing yesterday. We got to look at him, but he's been rather evasive when dealing with the media. That said, he will be on stage around 8:45 tonight. He'll speak for about 5 minutes. He has promised to speak with us immediately afterwards, so that's a little tease for what's coming up tonight at 11 o'clock. But I'll tell you what, his appearance here in Charlotte has all of those at the DNC and those who know Charlie Crist best wondering and speculating about his political intentions. So is Charlie Crist in campaign mode? Does he want his old job back? If so, will he run as a Democrat? Former gubernatorial candidate and state CFO Alex Sink says the more important question is, can he help win Florida for Obama?
As Democrats, we are the big tent party. We welcome people from all walks of life, of all types of, as long as they share our values and our ideology, they're welcome in the Democratic Party.
Former gubernatorial candidate Jim Davis agrees.
I'm not sure that Charlie Crist helps the president much in Florida, but I think it's part of a broader story that he's the second Republican governor speaking for President Obama. And I think if he wants to help the president, God bless him. Let's take his support, but let's get this president reelected.
But when pushed about whether the one-time self-described pro-gun, pro-life, anti-tax Republican would make a strong Democratic candidate for governor, probable candidate and potential primary competitor Alex Sink responds with a warning shot.
So if he makes a decision to register as a Democrat, that's one thing. If he decides to run for office, then he'll have to go through the same vetting process that everybody else goes through.
And in that vetting process, some of those things he said in the past might come back. In fact, they will.
Well, I've been talking to a lot of Democrats here in the last couple of days. We have long memories. I served with him in 4 years and heard him say over and over again what a conservative Republican he is. So, as I say, he's got a lot of splaining to do.
And let's be clear, Charlie Crist has not said he's a Democrat or even leaning that way, nor has he said he is seeking another term as governor of Florida. Gail, I'm not sure how this played at home. It's always interesting to see later on how it works on television, but here in this arena tonight, no lack of enthusiasm for their candidate, Barack Obama. It was a rousing call. He stood up there and said, I'm asking for a second term. And he went on to say this election is clear. It's a choice between two different paths for America.
You didn't elect me to tell you what you wanted to hear. You elected me to tell you the truth.
We'll have more on the president's speech in just a moment, but there was another highly anticipated speech tonight, at least from a Florida perspective. Former Republican, former Florida Governor Charlie Crist took to the stage tonight to make his case for why he is supporting President Barack Obama for a second term. We had a chance to speak with him immediately after he left the stage. We couldn't help but notice from our backstage view a familiar sight, a fan near the podium waiting for the former Republican governor. Also waiting in the arena, thousands of Democrats with a cordial welcome to the man who described himself not as a Republican or a Democrat, but as an optimistic American who now stands with them. And he explained why.
One of his first trips in office brought him to Fort Myers, Florida, where I was proud to embrace him and his plan to keep our teachers, police, and firefighters on the job. Well, that hug caused me more grief from my party than you can ever imagine. But even as the Republican Party fought tooth and nail to stop him, this president showed his courage, invested in America, and saved our Florida.
I am honored to be here, honored to have the opportunity to support this president. What I said out there, I really believe in my heart. He has done so much for our Florida and so much for all people, and I thought it was important to get that message across.
Do you want to be a Democrat, Governor?
I don't know. I don't know. I'm just proud to support the president.
What are your plans for 2014 as far as running for governor?
I don't have any plans. The only plan I have is to work as hard as I can for this man for the next 61 days to make sure he continues to be our president.
Are you still pro-gun, pro-life, and anti-tax?
I am. Politics back home is the last thing on my mind. The only thing I'm focused on is trying to help Barack Obama continue to be in the White House.
But some have accused you of being a political opportunist. Do you not see it that way?
I don't see it that way. Who would take the opportunity to get their head bashed in like I have this week?
Do you feel like that's happened?
Oh, I think it's happened a little. It's no big deal. It doesn't really bother me. I just think it's too important to the future of our state, the future of our country, to support this administration. What they've done for our state is absolutely incredible.
Do you not want your old job back?
I'm happy to have the job I have.
You don't want to be governor again? Joining us now for Her Perspective, News Channel 8 political analyst Dr. Susan McManus. What will people be saying about Charlie Crist in Florida tomorrow and this speech in particular?
Well, Republicans won't like what he had to say, and Democrats maybe don't know it, but they're happy that he's supporting the president. But in terms of clarifying whether he's going to switch to a Democrat, he absolutely said, I'm not a Democrat, I'm not a Republican, I'm Charlie Crist.
But when I asked him backstage, do you want to be a Democrat? I don't know, was his response. I found that interesting.
I think he's leaving the door open. Everyone knows that he's thinking about running for governor again. No surprise here. We've heard a lot about it. But he's not committing yet, and that's being coy is sometimes smart politics.
Yeah, part of the game, I suppose.